Welcome to GIS Gallery. In this tutorial, we're diving into the essentials of map layout design in ArcGIS Pro. I'll walk you through each step to create a polished and informative map by adding key elements like a legend, scale bar, title, and orientation. With these skills, you'll be able to create layouts that look professional and convey your data effectively.
Okay, so to create a map layout, first we'll go to Insert, and in Insert we have an option called New Layout. Okay, so click on New Layout, and you have different kinds of formats available, and we can actually use, we'll use the ANSI since my data is actually horizontal kind of or vertical kind of. I can actually use my layout as ANSI portrait data format. Okay, so I'll be using this format, and then it will actually create a new tab. Okay, in here I'll be adding my data. Okay, so first what I'll do is I have this map from here which will be having my data. Okay, so whatever the data that I'm trying to show, so this map frame actually refers to whatever the maps I have here. So I have map here, I have map 2 here, those will be coming up in my map frames. So that's where my data is, right? And first of all, before we start, we can actually create some margins. Okay, so if we right click here, we have something called add guides. Okay, so I'll just click on add guides, and then I'll just say that uh, I need guides that are offset from edge of something like 2 inches both sides, and I'll just create margins like this so that there's some kind of reference for me to place my data. Okay, so when I have placed a margin, next I can do is I can add my map frame. Okay, so I'll just click on the map frame, and then I'll just select my data. So when it's done, you can see your mouse cursor has changed. Now what I can do is I can just drag and draw how I want my data frame to be shown. So I'll just keep it with my margin here, and I'll just drag and drop the shape I want my data frame to be added. Okay, now it has actually come here, but it's not actually zoomed. So if I zoom in, you can see that your whole layout, right? Your whole map layout is zoomed, not your actual data. Okay, so if you want to actually zoom in on your data, what you need to do is you need to go onto your layout tab, right? So since layout is enabled here, you have a layout tab here. Click on layout tab, and you have an option here called activate the map frame. Okay, click on activate the map frame, and then you can just zoom in and keep up the zoom level that you want to set up. Okay, so I'll just click on this kind of zoom. Yeah, and after that is done, I can just go to my layout, and then I can close activation, or I can just close it from here. Okay, I can either close it from here, or I can close it from here. Now that is done. Now our data is added. Now we have to do is we have to add whatever the elements that we have, right? So whatever the elements that we saw, we should have first a text, right? So to add a text, I can just go to my the graphics and text options here. Okay, I have the graphics and text option here. So I have different kinds of styles. So I have rectangle text, or I have polygon text, or I can just select a straight text. So what I'll now do is I'll just click on rectangle text, and then I'll just go over the data that I want to add here. And in here I'll be setting the name as district map of Kerala. Now to change the properties of this, I can just right click from here, go to properties. Right, I have the properties in here. I can set the text, all those things. Or if I go over here, I can set the different kinds of formatting. So I'll just go over there and I'll just set the size as 20. I'll apply that, and maybe if I go to my position, I can set center alignment. I'll apply that here. I think it's center aligned. So now that the text is added, what I will add now is I can add a orientation, right? So for orientation, in its insert itself, we have an option here called north arrow. So if you click on north arrow, you can just drag and drop, or you can click on the drop down. You can actually select what kind of north arrow that you want to display. So I'll just select this arrow here, and I'll just drag and drop the place where I want it to be shown. Okay. And now if you click here, right click there, and then set on properties, you can actually change all the options in here. So you can actually change the width and all those things. You can change it here. You can actually set the shadows, your background, all those things you can actually add it from here. Okay. So now the north arrow is added. Then what else is remaining? We can also add a scale bar that's in the same frame surround, map surrounds. Okay. So I'll just drop down on the scale bar, and then I'll just select any one of these scales here. So I'll select this one, and what I'll do is I can just drag and drop where I want this data to be shown. So it's given here, and now I'll just click on the right click properties, and I'll change all the formatting in here. So I can set which unit I have. So I can set kilometers, and then you can actually change the label that is shown here. So instead of showing the whole kilometers, I can just show KMS, and then your label position you can actually set it above right or above width. So whatever it is, you can actually also change the label symbol here. And now if you come out in the next tab properties, you can actually set what kind of fitting strategy you want. So you can just adjust the number of divisions, you can do that, or you can just adjust division value, you can do that. And then in on here on the numbers, you have option here called frequency, where you can actually set what kind of frequency of you want these labels to be displayed. So I'll just set as ends and zeros because that style looks much cleaner. Okay, so I'll just set the ends and zeros here. And then we have different kinds of marks in here. We can actually change the frequency of the marks that is shown here. These marks, right? So you can change the frequency of those marks. Or we can also change the height and symbol of this bars that is shown here. And then similarly, we can also change the background, the shadow, and all those things. Other kind of formatting we can actually change from here. Okay. And so that is the scale bar. So now that we have added the scale bar, what we can add next is a legend, right? So I'll just drop down on the legend here, and then I can select any one of these styles. After it's selected, I can just drag and drop where I want my uh, legend to be shown. Okay. So now that is added here, I can now change whatever the properties or whatever or however I want this legend to be displayed. So what I'll do is I'll just click here, right click, click on properties, and so we have the different kinds of properties in here. In here we have the name line. So if you don't set it as visible or visible, you can set it. Or if you want this data, all of these elements are actually an option here called the lock. So if you lock it, you won't be able to edit it anymore. So you can lock it or not, doesn't matter. That is done. You can also want to show. If I want to show this title here, I can click here, or if not, it won't be shown. And similarly, in legend items, you have option here called show properties. If you click on show properties, you can actually display what kind of data you want to be shown. So I have legend here, and then I have the layer name, right? So capitals and boundaries also layer names, and then I have the field names which are district HQ and name, right? So those are the field names. So if I don't want this layer name to be displayed, I can just pick off that so it's not displayed. If I don't want the heading of these field names to be shown here, I can just disable field names, and so that is one. Okay, and then you have the different kinds of type of the labeling, the legend you can show. We have the different kinds of arrangement also. If you want the patch label description, or if you want the label patch description, so these are different kinds of arrangement of this data. So if I'm clicking on this one, see the arrangement has changed. So there are different kinds of arrangement that you can change from here. And yeah, so you can actually change all those things in here. And then if you go to the other tabs, you can also change the adjust the font size, all those things in here. Or you can just go over here and change all the other kind of the backgrounding, the shadows, all those symbols you can actually change from this kind of symbols. So main thing is we should check out the legend items to display what all the data that you actually want to show here. Okay. And the other thing that you can do from here is, so if you actually right click on this data, right, there an option here called convert to graphics. Okay. If you convert them to graphics, and then if you have an option here called ungroup, and if you ungroup them, you can actually select this data or select whatever the elements that you have in your symbology one by one, and then change them however you want. Okay, so you can change all of them how you want. So if you want this alert not to be displayed the whole thing, if you want to change that, you can change that. If you want the symbols to be changed of a different or if you want to be displayed in a different kind of format, you can actually do that, right? You can change the colors and all those things. You can do it from here, and you can also maybe move it like this. So whatever the option that you can do, it's possible. And after you're done with whatever the edits that you have done, you can just select them all like this and then click on group so that they're just grouped into a single layer again. That is your legend. Okay, so all those things you can do with your legend options here. Then what was the next element that we needed? We actually added a scale, we added a legend, we added a district of the name, we added a north arrow, and then what we can add next is maybe we can add an inset map, right? So what is an inset map? So it actually shows in where your data is, right? So to create an inset map, first you should have a different map view to display. So in here, I have a map view like this, okay? So I can use this view as my inset map. So I'll just come over to my layout again, and in insert, in map frame, I can come over and I have the second map, right? The map 2 I have in here. I just click it and I just draw where I want this insert map to be displayed. I can display like that. And next what I should do is I should always activate it so that I can zoom in and zoom out to display where this data is looking like. So I'll just go to my layout, click on activate, and then zoom it over, right, to display my insert map. And after that, I can just close the activation. So it is done. So next I can do is I need to add a external indicator, right? So I have an insert map here, but I want to actually show where my data is looking over in the insert map. For that, in the insert tab itself, we have an option here called external indicator. Okay. So I'll just click on the extend indicator and then I'll just click which map. So first map is the extend. So when it's done, you can actually see that there's been a square that's added onto where my data is. So if I actually want to change the color, so all these things, so if it's black here, it's not actually visible, right? So if I want to actually change the symbol of that, if we come over to my drawing order, right? So this one has all the elements that I have added in my map layout. So in here, I have the external indicator, right? So I just right click on external indicators, go on to the properties, and then I can actually change the symbol of that. So in here, a symbol is like a line width of 1 pt. So I can just change over, set it to a different color, and I just click on apply. So be done. Properties. Yep, this was not the symbol. This was actually the symbol. I'll just set the color, set the point, click on apply. Yeah. Now the extend has been set. Okay. So now that is done. What I can add next is I can add a grid here, right? So to add a grid, what you need to do is first you'll have to select your map. Okay. So your map is this one. Your map frame. Where is my map frame? So this is my map frame. So when my map frame is selected, so I have two map frames here, right? So the first map frame was of my inset map, and the second map frame was my inset map. The first map frame was for my this data. Okay. So when that data or this map frame is selected, in the insert tab, you have an option here called grid, which actually opens up. Okay. So when you can actually select which kind of grid you want to show. So I'll just click on the first grid category, and then it will be added, and then you'll be able to see that in your grid drawing order or your in the contents you can see your grid black horizontal label category has been added. But I don't want this kind of square grids to be shown. I only want my lat long to be shown here. For that I can just right click, go on to the properties. So your properties tab opens up, and in here if you come over to the components, okay, we have an option here called grid lines. Okay, one thing you can do is you can actually uh, change the appearance in here. Okay, so instead of solid stroke, you can actually give some other kind of strokes, or you can set the reduce the transparency of those things. Or what you can do is you can just select here, and you have an option called remove the grid component. So I'll just click here and remove the grid component, and that will be gone. Okay, so if you actually want to add it, then option here called plus, and then in here you can add whatever the data. You can add the grid lines, add labels, all the data you can do. And the labels here is the labels that shown around the lat and long, right? And different kinds of ticks here. And if you come over here, I don't want these labels on the right and left to be placed like this horizontally. I want them to be vertical, right? Parallel to the map frame. Okay. So for that I can just click on the labels, right? The map components I can click on labels, and if I come down over here, you have one option here called draw parallel to grid edges, which will draw your parallel all the labels parallel to the edge of your grid, right? You can do that, or what you can do is you have an option called vertical. You can display whichever data you want to be vertical. So if I want the east and west, right? So I want the east and west to be made vertical. So those would be there. So we have different options here. You can either click enable on the east and west vertical, or you can just click on draw parallel to grid edges. Okay, so you can do that. And then you can also maybe change the lat and long. So if you come over here, you have an interval. In the interval, you can tick it off here. And then if you come over to grad plane, you can actually change the interval of your data to be shown here, right? So this thing is every 30 minutes it's shown here. You can actually, if you want the grids to be shown every 1 degree, you can just change that in here. Okay. So you have all those functions, all those changes that can be done in here. And yeah, so you have a different grid boundary. If you want to actually add a grid boundary, you can do that. So that is one thing. And then yeah, so if you want to actually have a background for this data, you can set a different kind of background. So what kind of background do you want to be shown? So if you want my legend to have a white background, I can just set that in here, right? So in the background of the properties of my legend, the second option, which is the display, the background, I can set a background color. If I don't want any background, I can just set it as no color. So any of your data, you can actually set these backgrounds, right? So if that is done, so whatever the data that you have done, you need to actually add. Okay, we added the title, we added the legend, we added the scale, we added the orientation indication, and we added the grids and reticles. So now that is done, our map layout is ready. Okay, and if you actually want some kind of border to this, then you can just come over to the insert. We have different shapes here. Okay, so if you come over here, in here, there are shapes called rectangle. If you actually want some kind of border on your data, you can just drag and draw shape that you actually display. Right? So if you want your border, you can set a border like this. Right? So you can actually set a border for your data to be shown like this. And then if that is done, we are done with creating a map layer, right? So we have added legend, we have the title, we have the north arrow, we have the inset map, and we have the grids also added here. Now that is done, what we can do is we need to actually export this as a map layer, right? So if this is done, what you need to do is you can actually go to the share button here, and in here you have an option called export layer. Click on export layer, you can have the export layer properties in here. What you'll next do, you can actually select the file type. So if you want your map to be in a JPG, or you have also options here PDF, right? So you can actually do that, and then you can browse over to which location you want your data to be or your layout to be saved, right? So you can just browse over, select your folder where you want your data to be stored. I'll just go over, yeah, I just give the name layout6.pdf, save, the location has been done. Next thing, you can actually set the quality of your data, how much quality your data should have, right? And all the raster, the vector DPI, all those things you can do. After that is done, you can just click on export. Okay, click on export. It will show export in progress. To show that export has been completed. Now I'll just come over here, my layout, and layout 6 has been done, and your map layout has been saved as a PDF. Okay, so these are the different elements, and the like we saw that. So whatever elements you should have in a map layout and then how to create them in ArcGIS Pro.